Welcome to the first review on the Figureball YouTube channel. I am Mr. Coffee, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Bandai Tamashii Nations S.H.Figuarts Deadpool from Deadpool and Wolverine. I picked this figure up from AmiAmi for around $57 USD before shipping, and this happens to be my first ever Marvel figure. I am mainly a collector of Star Wars 6-inch figures, but I have been taking the dive to look at some other lines recently, and Deadpool happened to be that first plunge. But enough with the intro, let's get into taking a closer look at the packaging. On the front of the box, we have our Marvel Studios and Deadpool and Wolverine logos, alongside your Bandai and Tamashii Nations logos with the coveted unpirateable sticker in the corner. On the side, we have Deadpool and Wolverine again, with a nice graphic of Deadpool that wraps around from the front of the box, with Deadpool's logo in the corner. On the back, we have some poses for the figure alongside all your legalese and warning information, as well as a nice photo of all of Deadpool's accessories. Finally, on the left side, we have another image of the figure itself. And without further ado, let's do the unboxing. Here we have the figure itself still in the tray alongside Deadpool, his signature Desert Eagle pistols and their holsters, as well as his adamantium katanas and the sheath behind it. In the bottom right corner we have Deadpool's flight pole, as well as a tool for removing Deadpool's eyes. Above them we have the baby knife and the empty holster. And finally, a nice selection of swap out eyes. Behind the first tray, we have another tray with a vast amount of interchangeable hand options, as well as the ones already installed on the figure itself. Now, let's get a closer look at all of his accessories. Starting off, we have Deadpool installed on the flight pole. There is a nice amount of texture on the mask, as well as some excellent sculpt work for the mouth and the teeth. At the top of the hat, we do have his signature propeller with a nice gunmetal paint job, and it can spin around. The hat itself has some excellent sculpted stitching detail, as well as some nice and clean paint applications to convey the look of leather. He is able to be slightly articulated on the flight pole with a ball joint that goes into the back of him that allows for some tilt. The flight pole itself does have two hinges and a cuff to go around Deadpool's arm. The eyes have some amazing detail work going on with the veins that pop, an excellent paint job, and just some excellent attention to detail overall. The cutoff of the mask has been sculpted to simulate it as if he's flying around in the wind. Now, let's take a closer look at the weapons. Here we have Deadpool's adamantium katanas that he uses in the film. They have a phenomenal metallic silver paint job to them, as well as some excellent and very clean paint on the holes all throughout the handles. Next up, we do have the baby knife, again with some great metallic silver paint on the blade, as well as some paint to differentiate parts of the handle. Here we have Deadpool's signature Desert Eagle pistols. They are cast in a black plastic with some nice sculpted detail to them, as well as having the teeny tiny Deadpool logo on the bottom of the magazines. I would have liked to see a bit of paint on them, but it's not the end of the world. Alongside the pistols, we do have their holsters, which do peg into the side of Deadpool's legs. They are separate pieces, unfortunately, but thankfully they do fit securely. Here we have the sheath to Deadpool's katanas. It is secured to his back with a very snug peg. The handles are separate pieces that continue the trend of that very clean paintwork on the handles of the full katanas, and they are removable to simulate them being unsheathed if you have the actual katanas in use on the figure. For the final accessory when it comes to the weapons, we do have a swap out sheath that pegs into the leg to simulate if you have the baby knife in use, and it does have some great tiny paint apps for the little metal buttons. With the weapons out of the way, let's get into the hands. Starting off with the hands, we do have a pair of neutral hands already installed on the figure straight out of the package. Next up, a pair of closed fists, a pair of gripping hands for both the katanas and the baby knife, two closed fists with some small daggers sticking out of the top of them, a pair of thumbs up gesturing hands, a pair of trigger finger hands for the pistols, a pair of finger gun style pointers, probably my favorite of the bunch, which are a pair of heart hands, some flat karate chop style hands, and finally some splayed out gesture hands. I love not only the options with the hands, but the clean paintwork and the texture of the suit that transitions onto all of them. Up next, we will be taking a look at the interchangeable eyes. Thankfully included with the figure is a tool to help out with the process. You just take the head off and use the pointed tip to push into the peg and the eyes will come out very easily. Already installed on the figure is a pair of neutral eyes. Up next is a pair of smiling or giggling style eyes, a pair of wide open surprise style eyes, then finally some angry eyes. Now that we've gone through all the accessories, let's get Deadpool himself in the light box. Here we have Deadpool standing straight up and down with a few of his accessories on him to finish the look. This figure has honestly blown me away so far. The texture of the suit, the crisp paint, all that beautiful sculpted detail, it really has it all. The proportions are on point, the articulation isn't too gappy or over-engineered like some other S.H.Figuarts releases. It honestly is a beautiful piece that has some great presentation to it. Now that we've gotten a good look at him from a short distance, let's get a closer look at some of those details. Taking our first close look at the figure, you can really start to see the texture of that suit start to pop alongside all the very nice sculpted details of it. There's all kinds of buckles and straps and a ton of very clean and intricate paint on them, such as on the bicep. All the buckles have a nice metallic paint applied to them with no sight of any kind of paint bleed or anything like that. The sculpt of his belt is great, with a cleanly applied Deadpool logo and some of those nice tiny silver paint hits on the buttons. He does have a nicely sculpted set of pouches down on his left thigh, and the detail continues everywhere around the figure. He does have the notorious S.H.Figuarts thong style articulation, but it doesn't break up the sculpt itself too badly. There are a couple of small buttons on the back of the belt with that metallic paint on them, as well as some very nicely sculpted straps that go around both legs of the figure. The paint lines on the back of the boots still continue that trend of very intricate paintwork with no bleeds. Overall, I am extremely satisfied with how everything has turned out so far on this figure. Here we have the figure all up close and personal, and I will be using the eye removal tool as a sort of pointer. I really like the proportions of the figure overall, from the mask to the waist. The arms have a nice little bit of bulk to them, and the neck isn't too skinny. The neck has a very clean strap around it with that metallic paint on the buckles. The sculpt of the strap is clean, and it does transition nicely from the upper torso to the abdomen. He does have some nice sculpt work with those black buckles on the chest, and one of my favorite parts of the figure is the belt. I love how clean the logo is, and I'm a sucker for those tiny silver paint hits on the buttons. It does have some nice metallic paint where it buckles into the center as well. Transitioning to the waist and the top of the legs, we do have a nice look at that brown pouch on his leg, as well as the clean paintwork on the straps, and again, they have that nice metallic paint on the buckles. The knee pads look great and appear as if they have a bit of cushion on them if they were real parts of an outfit. You can also get a nice look at the intricate paint application to the back of the hands and the straps that lead to the belt from the holster. Ending down at the lower legs and boots, you can really see the great job they did with the sculpt as a whole and keeping everything nice and consistent between the whole figure. As someone who dabbles in making custom figures, I really have to commend Tamashii Nations for how clean all the paintwork has been on the figure. Getting into 3 things I really enjoy about the figure, I'll have to commend them for the accessories. This figure comes with just about everything I could have asked for when it comes to Deadpool himself, except for maybe some gold desert eagles. Another thing is just the beautiful paintwork. There really is next to no flaws with it on the entire figure, and that's worth some amount of praise for me. These aren't extremely small batches of figures, they are painted in a factory with a decent production run, and to see how great the end product turned out really blew me away. The last thing is some of the engineering. There are some great decisions made that I will go over during the articulation segment, but they really just knocked it out of the park with this figure for the most part. Going over the articulation, there is an angled dumbbell joint in the neck leading up to the head and a ball in the torso that will end up giving you about this far forward and this far back, along with some tilt. There is a ball joint at the upper torso leading into the abdomen and an angled ball joint at the waist leading into the lower abdomen, both allowing you to get around this far forward. And then this is the engineering that I mentioned. I love how there's a cover for any gapping in the waist. Unfortunately, due to the katana sheath, this figure basically has no range leaning back. He does have a dumbbell joint at the shoulder leading into the butterfly joint, which is secured to the torso via another long dumbbell joint. The butterfly does have some nice forward range, but due to the shoulder pad, doesn't get a lot of range backwards. The dumbbell going into the butterfly joint allows you to get a bit of range up and down and some side to side. The shoulder pad is glued to the bicep, so you can't quite reach 90 degrees at the shoulder. There is a bicep swivel, and he does have double jointed elbows that allow you to get way past 90 degrees. As mentioned earlier, he does have the thong style hips, but they do allow the legs to kick out to 90 degrees. He does have a double jointed knee, but this might disappoint Robo because he unfortunately can't quite kick his own ass. He does have a swivel at the upper thigh, as well as a hinge at the ankle that gives you some range before the sculpts clash into each other. He does have a forward-facing pin for some rocker, as well as a toe hinge. Now I am going to get into 3 things that I don't really enjoy about the figure. Unfortunately, the thong covers at the hips are quite loose on my copy, and they do tend to move around and be a bit annoying while trying to dial in a pose. The next annoying thing is the pistols do sit very loosely in the holster, and they will often end up flying or getting flicked out when articulating the figure, but of course when I try to show it on camera it makes me look crazy and decides to comply with me. I'm also really not a fan of the holster straps not connecting to the belt, but I do understand why they designed it this way. The final complaint is the sheath for the baby knife on my copy does tend to fall out, as you saw during the articulation segment. I really do hope you all enjoyed the review for the new S.H.F. Deadpool. This figure is honestly a blast to mess around with and comes with so many possibilities in terms of posing for things like figure photography, but of course the most important thing, fun. I really can't recall the last time I got a figure that was not only this nicely designed, sculpted, engineered, and painted, but also just a blast to play around with. Tamashii Nations really knocked it out of the park with this release, and I'm very satisfied with my purchase overall. While it isn't perfect, I don't really think any figure is truly perfect at the end of the day, even if a lot of them do come very close to the finish line. I hope you all enjoy the posing that I saved for the very end of the video. If you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell to know when we upload any new content. If you enjoyed the review, leave a like and a comment and let me know if you own this figure or plan on picking it up at some point. If you didn't like the review or have some thoughts on how I could improve any future ones, drop a comment and let me know. Don't forget to catch our weekly live stream Monday Night Figure Ball every single Monday at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time, where we mainly discuss Star Wars figure collecting in terms of news, but we do all dabble into different lines and we'll talk about them all the time. Thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week.